Miss Fletcher from Wolverhampton Music Service, and today we're going to have a look at Fauré's Morceau de Concours for flute and piano. So Fauré was alive at the end of the 1800s and he wrote some wonderful pieces of music for flute. He wrote very well for the flute. Things like Sicilienne is a beautiful piece and it uses a compound time signature, so 6/8, to give a really lovely feel. And there's also a piece called Pavane, which has been used by lots and lots of different composers and groups since. Most recently, I think, probably is the Little Mix version. In their song Little Me, they use the Pavane. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is some demi-semiquavers. Demi-semiquavers are these notes marked with the arrow where you have not just one line joining them at the bottom, which would make them a quaver, or two lines which would make them a semiquaver, but three lines joining them together, and that makes them a demi-semiquaver. We have 8 demi-semiquavers in one beat. So 8 demi-semiquavers equal 1 crotchet, which is why you can see here, where you get the pink arrow, you can see 8 demi-semiquavers all joined together for the third beat of that bar. Now what I would suggest you do with any of the demi-semiquavers in this piece is play them really slowly first and then start to speed them up. If you've got a metronome at home, put the metronome on, get it clicking away in the background, and then have a really slow practice. I'm just going to play them through really slowly for you and then maybe you can copy. So you can see there's a little bit of a pattern there. The note rises 1 and then falls 2 each time. So practice that slowly, speed it up so that gradually you can get a bit faster. And the nice thing about this piece is because it's so slow, but also it's very expressive, you can put a little bit more expression into this run of demi-semiquavers by perhaps just starting a little bit slower, maybe ending a little bit slower. I'll give you an example. Keeping it loud all the way through. The next thing you might want to just spend a little bit of time on is the bottom Cs and bottom C sharps. We've just played a bottom C at the end of those demi-semiquavers, and you'll see I've moved the arrow up to the C sharp, bottom C sharp. So for C, we want both of the keys on our foot joint pressed down, and for C sharp, we don't want the very bottom key pressed down, but we do want the one next to it. So just one key pressed down on our foot joint. It's quite hard to come straight in on one of those notes, so you might want to just do a little bit of practice, keeping your mouth nice and relaxed, using your diaphragm to push down to get those notes out. There's a C sharp, there's a bottom C. So the third thing to have a look at before you try the piece all the way through is the dotted rhythms, and you'll see a little bit further down the page in bar 20 there is a doubly dotted note. The D flat at the beginning of this bar has got 2 dots on it, and it's followed by a demi-semiquaver, which is going to go really fast. It's going to sound like it's exploding up to that top F. It's accented, it's forte, and there's a big crescendo in the bar beforehand. So we really need to go for it there. Try not to make that sound too wishy-washy. Really go for the A flat, short, and explode up to the top F. So with the bar in front. So when this was written, Fauré only wrote the first section really. He only wrote, well, from bar 16 to the end. And what happened was when it was discovered in the 20th century, it was decided that the last section would be repeated at the beginning. So you might have noticed that the second bar, the flute comes in with MF, and then when we have the same tune again at bar 16, it's MP. But it's exactly the same otherwise. It's just the volume that changes. This little section at the end is what we would call a codetta, a little tail piece, something that's just stuck on the end to finish the piece off. And we end with something that's quite tricky on the flute, a quiet arpeggio that's getting slower and getting higher. And the danger is we'll either run out of breath, or it'll go out of tune, or that top F won't come out properly. So I would spend a little bit of time, even though it doesn't look that tricky, having a go at that arpeggio from the end, from the C, the low C, up to the top F, and spend a bit of time, as I say, working on keeping your air going through the flute, keeping the air speed so that as you go up that arpeggio you don't lose the notes. We're in danger of getting something that sounds like this. And we need to support, tighten our diaphragms, tighten our tummy muscles, and just make sure that the air keeps going up to that top note. So it sounds more like this. And obviously there's a nice pause on that last note, which you can keep going for as long as the air allows. So now it's time to try it through. I'm going to play it with a backing track, which I've found on YouTube. The address is just at the bottom of the screen there for you. Or you can play it along with me. I hope you enjoy it.